All right, ladies and gentlemen of the Heavy Metal History Podcast, my guests for this episode are two members of the band Replicant. We got Mike and we got Peter. Guys, thank you for doing the podcast. I appreciate you guys coming on.
Thanks for
Oh
having us.
yeah. Thanks for having us.
Yeah. So the thing that I like to start with on this podcast, and we can start whichever one of you wants to go first. We'll just start with Peter since I can see him on my screen first. I like to know your personal heavy metal history. You know, what are those bands and records that you remember getting and listening to that shaped you into like where your taste is now, and maybe even some non-metal stuff. I like hearing about that too.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah, well, I grew up in a house that was always playing music. My dad grew up in England, so he was always into a lot of those old British rock bands, like Cream, Zeppelin, Pink Floyd. So yeah, I listened to a lot of that as a kid. And yeah, when I was in eighth grade, a buddy of mine, we went to Blockbuster and we rented the first Resident Evil PlayStation 1, and we bought the Black album because he had just started taking drum lessons, and his teacher taught him Enter Sandman. So we listened to the Black album and played Resident Evil all night, and pretty much from that moment on, I was hooked. So yeah, I started off with Metallica, like a lot of kids my age, and kind of went into the Iron Maidens and your Slayers and Anthrax, a lot of the thrash stuff, and then I guess, yeah, in high school, I started listening to In Flames. I saw the Cloud Connected video on Headbangers Ball. And I was like, oh, this is pretty sick. It's kind of like Iron Maiden, but some weird vocals. So yeah, started getting into a lot of the Swedish stuff. Really like In Flames, Dark Tranquility, At the Gates. And then yeah, from there, I when I got to college is when I got access to Direct Connect DC++, which was kind of like a Napster, kind of Kazaa. And that's when I started finding all this other weird shit. And I was like, whoa, what the fuck is all this? And, that's when I went down the rabbit hole.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting too for me because probably around that same time, man, when like digital downloading started being a thing, that really opened up a lot of doors for me. Besides like going and buying like records every week at the store and just flipping and seeing like, oh, that album cover looks cool. Maybe I'll buy that and take a chance on it. But yeah, the downloading thing was a huge turning point, I think, for a lot of people our age.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. Cause again, cause I guess I'm like almost 40. So it's like,
I'm right there with you. You look
okay,
younger than I am.
same. I mean, at least I feel that way, but who the fuck knows? But yeah. So like for me, it was like, when I was growing up, middle school, high school, it's like, if you didn't hear it on the radio, you didn't get to hear it, right? Or you go to like, the Wiz or like like Tower Records or whatever,
Mhm.
and just like kind of like find random shit, and because like the cover looked cool. But yeah, it wasn't really until like, like I could start like, downloading music or searching for music that it's like, oh, like there's a whole other world out there, not just like the kind of like A level or B level, of like metal bands where it's like, oh, there's like a lot more under that iceberg.
Yeah. Yeah, finding out those like obscure bands that only had like one album or one demo out, and you're just like, well, this is kind of cool. Like, what happened to them? And
Right.
figuring out if they're still around or not.
Yeah. It was an interesting time because it's like, like death metal kind of went away for a bit in like in the mid 90s, kind of like
Yeah,
early 2000s. And then I think like because of the internet and like all of these file sharing like programs, like people just started like, throwing them up there, and then they just started like almost like the tape trading movement of like the 80s, early 90s, right? Where it's like all of a sudden all of these bands are somewhat like relevant again. And then all of a sudden, like you had like the explosion of them all coming back, right? Like,
yeah,
Gorguts and Morbid Angel and Atheist and Cynic and all these bands that were just totally dead, like just came back because now they were relevant again. So
yeah,
that was like kind of the start of it, where it's like, oh shit, like there's all this other cool stuff that I had never even like been exposed to.
yeah. I agree. It was a very weird time growing up from like physical media to digital. So,
Yeah.
Mike, what about you, man?
Yeah, well, first, like the first thing I heard with electric guitars was Nirvana, and that
Hmm.
was like what was it? Heart-shaped box. My brother
Yeah,
showed me that on his Walkman. And I was like, yo, this sounds really different, sounds cool. I was like 5 years old, and then I would like turn on MTV once in a while, try to catch a Nirvana video or something. So then that turned into me watching some Beavis and Butthead stuff. and then I'd watch like the music videos, and that's when I first heard of like these are little things that kind of just like stuck with me throughout the years, and they kind of popped up as I got older. I was like, oh wait, I heard of that band. Oh, I heard of that one. It's like Crowbar was in there, and
Yeah.
then later I would find their CD in like a used bin. And I'd be like, oh, I know this band, and that would be it. But like the band that really struck a chord with me, like for real, when I started like discovering music was Korn when I was in middle school. I heard Follow the Leader when that came out, and that blew my mind. I was like, this is so heavy, it's so rhythmic, and from there I would try to get into heavier bands and things with like down-tuned guitars, and that was like what my ear was tuned to. So in high school, it was like, more into like I heard like some or like some mid-era like Napalm Death stuff, and then Brujeria and Fear Factory, and then later I started going into I started hearing melodic death metal. Like Pete said, like I got into In Flames, and that tuned my ear a different direction. And then when I started torrenting music and downloading music, and I found like Wintersorg and like Falkenbach and Moon Sorrow and all these like pagan bands. And then I got at the same time starting to get into like metalcore because that's what was big at the time. All
Yeah.
the At the Gates core bands like Death to Fall, Darkest Hour, and
Oh yeah.
that stuff. So it's like just a big kind of just like a big crashing of all different styles I was getting into at the same time.
Yeah, it does seem to hit you all at once. It's like once you
Yeah.
find one band, you're like, well, what else is there? And you just start going down this road of like, okay, maybe I like that. Or sometimes, you'll listen to a band and you don't appreciate them at the time, and then you'll revisit it like, years down the road and be like, man, why didn't I like this when I was like 14? And now I like it when I'm like 32 or whatever.
Yeah.
Um, yeah,
No, it's like it's always like something that client you kind of like just let it stay there. Maybe it needs to marinate a little bit, and
yeah.
then you come back to it. Just like it stays on the mind, like that you remember the name. Like let me check it out again. Maybe I'm in a different place, but yeah, just a lot of like just also like digging into like at the time it was when I was in high school, metal archives started coming out.
Mhm.
So we would see bands like me and my friends would be like, oh, you could search by country. So we just going to like random countries and just seeing bands from all over the world and just trying to check them out, see if they have something online that we could check out, like MySpace or whatever.
Yeah.
That was
Yeah, I
another,
guess that was around that time too, huh? Like early mid 2000s.
yeah.
Did. Yeah. Yeah.
I remember like 2003, 2004 for me around then.
Yeah, I think that's like because they just did their 20-year anniversary for Metal Archives last year. So yeah, it was 2003.
Wow.
Yeah, that was like this big thing. So it's like that was like one of the beautiful things about the internet right there.
Yeah. Yeah. Like right. I think we were all in that little area then where like that started to change things for like how we discovered music, and having more access to that information of like bands and where they're from and all that stuff. Cause like, tape trading and CD trading, that was done with by that time. Well,
Mhm.
sort of. I mean, there's still like the niche people that do it. Same with like, vinyl making a comeback.
Totally.
So with that, your guys' kind of musical history, Pete, we'll go back to you. Where did your love for guitar and wanting to play instruments kind of come in between that?
Yeah. So when I was a kid, I played saxophone.
Oh, hell yeah.
So yeah, I started playing saxophone in fourth grade, and I played all throughout high school. I was in like the jazz band and the pit band and all that shit. Um, but yeah, when I was like 14 or 15, like kind of around the time I got the Black Album, I was just like, man, the guitar is so fucking cool. I was like, it's like so much cooler than the saxophone. So I got really into like Metallica, and like I love James Hetfield, and I thought he was like the most badass dude. So yeah, I really just wanted to go get a guitar. So for my birthday, my parents bought me like a Yamaha Pacifica and like a little crate, like a 10 water and like a metal zone pedal. And that was my setup for a while. And I just bought a bunch of like Metallica tab books, and I learned like all the like as many Metallica songs as I could.
Oh wow.
And then yeah, like I pretty much was just doing Metallica covers and like Iron Maiden songs and shit um, in high school. And then when I got to college, and again, like I got like the DC, I got like the internet, and I was just like listening to all this other music, and I had like a lot more free time on my hands. So that's when I was like really like I got really super into it. Like I would just sit in my dorm room and just play guitar for like hours and hours and hours every day. And there was like metaltabs.net and all that shit. So now I could just
Oh
like
yeah.
look up the tabs online, and I could learn like all these songs. And yeah, that's really when I kind of just like got like super obsessed with it. Yeah, like in college.
So you're more self-taught than like lessons, really?
Yeah, I took a few lessons in high
Nice.
school from this guy. It was kind of funny because he was like just like your typical like band dude, like just kind of like was doing it because he needed the cash, like giving like lessons. And he would be like, "What do you want to learn?" And he's like, "You want to learn like theory?" And I was like, "Yeah." He's like, "Well, how about we just like I'll just teach you some Metallica songs." He's like if you burn me some like computer games, like if you just give me some craft computer games, I'll just teach you a bunch of Metallica songs. And I was like, okay. So he pretty much just taught me a bunch of Metallica songs, and that was it. And then yeah, and I never like took any formal lessons or anything.
It's a good trade though. I mean, burning games for free lessons, not bad.
Yeah, yeah.
So Mike, what about you, man?
Well, I started playing bass when I was 12 or 13,
Mhm.
11 or 12. 12. Yeah, it was like I was in seventh grade, and a bunch of like classmates were like, "Hey, let's start a band or something." I had no musical training, no nothing, never did an instrument, never was taught anything, and I just said, "Hey, this thing has less strings than a guitar. It might be easy." So I got the bass, and I was for a while I was just trying to play it like a guitar. I was like, "This doesn't sound anything like what I'm supposed to be playing here. It sounds nothing like freaking Break Stuff by Limp Bizkit. What am I doing wrong?" And yeah, that's where I was like looking at tabs up. It was like freaking all the significant other tabs, you know. So then I then I ended up getting lessons, and I was doing that for a while, just doing bass lessons and learning like Nirvana songs and stuff. And then in high school, I took a guitar class, and that's when I said, "Oh, I want to learn how to play guitar now." So I ended up getting a guitar, electric guitar, and I started learning Metallica songs from the
Oh,
Ride the Lightning songbook. Came with the slow down versions on a CD, so I could just follow the tabs. And I was like, "Oh, this is sick," you know, like so. It was that, and yeah, that was it. Just started playing guitar and bass together, just riffing that way.
that's really funny because I did the same thing, man. I tried playing bass first, and I was like, "This is not really what I want." And doing the same thing, like trying to play it like a guitar, it's just it's it's a completely different thing. But
Yeah, we got bamboozled. You know, they
yeah,
look like a guitar, but they're not really a freaking guitar. What is this?
yeah, they got the bigger strings. It's supposed to be heavier.
It's like what was that Simpsons episode when they said, "Hey," to Homer when he was trying to like play in a band. It's like, "Hey, you want to play bass?" I think it was the Rolling Stones were in that episode. It's like, "Here, the
Mhm.
bass." It's like, "Do do do do." It's like,
Oh man, that's like the gag too with Spinal Tap with the drummers. You know, they're always blowing up a drummer. The drummer's dying, and
Yeah.
it is so hard to find drummers. I
oh
mean,
yeah, you're telling, speaking to the
oh.
choir.
Cool, man. So we got all right. So we got a little bit of history about your guys' personal like intro into metal and all that stuff. So, um, take me back a little bit to forming Replicant. You know, like getting the band together, how you guys met. Did you guys know each other from a young age? All that kind of stuff.
Sure. Mike, you want to go or should I?
You should start.
Yeah.
All right. All right. So let's see. So yeah, like in the 2007, I was in a band called Dystrophy, which was like, started out as kind of like a thrash, like a melodic, like a, almost like a Iced Earth kind of Iron Maiden-y kind of thrashy death metal band. And then as we kind of went on, started getting more into like Gorguts and Voivod and, kind of more Martyr and Canadian, like French Canadian bands.
Oh yeah.
And uh, so like around 2010, 2009, 2010, I was working at a recording studio, like a studio in New Jersey. and this guy came in, and I was wearing a Morbid Angel shirt, and he was like, "Hey man, like I love Morbid Angel, like blah blah blah." Like he's like, "I'm trying to start like a band." He's like, "Do you play any instruments?" And I was like, "Oh yeah, like I play guitar. I'm in this band Dystrophy." And we kind of hit it off. We started jamming, and we ended up starting this band. Well, he was already in this band with a drummer called Painted Rust, and it was kind of like a death metal, kind of like a wacky death metal band. And we had like the full band except for a singer. And we had back then, Craigslist. People still using Craigslist a lot. Maybe they do now. I don't know. But so we put out like an ad out on Craigslist, and Mike answered the ad for the singer, and we tried him out, and it was sick. And that's pretty much how we met, just from a Craigslist ad. And we did that band for only a short amount of time, like a year or two, and then it kind of all fell apart. And then once that band ended, when I was in Dystrophy, we had a drummer. The drummer's name was Matt. So once Painted Rust ended, Mike and I were like, "Hey, like we should, keep doing something. Like we should keep, working together. Like, we should get a new band going. Like just keep kind of going where the Painted Rust left off, and kind of maybe change it up a little bit, but kind of keep that like overall like idea." So originally, the drummer from Painted Rust was gonna play drums in Replicant, but he ended up moving to California. And a buddy of ours who was going to play bass also ended up moving. So it was just me and Mike, and we were like, "Hey," I was like, "Hey, like let me reach out to Matt, who was in Dystrophy, to play drums." Matt was down, so it became the three of us. And then we had a good friend named Tom, who's in like a million bands from New Jersey. And he was down to play bass. So that was like the original lineup of Replicant. It was me on guitar, Mike was just singing, and then we had our buddy Tom on bass and Matt on drums.
Nice. So then,
one thing I just want to interject there is
go.
when I was searching on Craigslist, I actually typed in black metal to look for like a black. It was death metal, black metal. I think extreme, so I just put black metal, and then the post said absolutely no black metal. And I was like, hey, thankfully he SEO'd it pretty well for me to find
it. I never knew that. That's funny. Yeah. Absolutely.
I just remembered he did say no black metal, and that's how I found it.
And you're like, all right, well, fuck it.
Wow, I'm into death metal too. Lucky.
Lucky us, yeah.
Yeah.
Lucky me.
So from that iteration of the band and kind of like, going towards like writing your first record and everything like that, is that were you guys like really trying to make it more of a, I guess it's kind of not a job, but like there are some bands who like only really want to like kind of record and not tour and do all that kind of thing. Like where were your aspirations at as far as like taking the band somewhere?
Well, the funny thing about the first 4 songs we recorded, Worthless Desires, that was just supposed to be kind of just like a scratched up demo. We just kind of like we just did it raw as possible, and Pete did the whole recording, and we're just like, just do it, just fuck it, roll with it, sounds good. We didn't do a lot of pre-pro, not a lot of, this sounds a little off. Who cares? So it's like, whatever. It's like, just put it out there, man. This just exists. And then Pete ended up, here, do you take it from there then?
Yeah. So Dystrophy had put out the last album we put out on Self-Made God Records out of Poland. And on our Bandcamp page, I had like a little thing in like the notes saying like, this record is dedicated to Steve Hurdle, who was the guitar player and one of the vocalists in Gorguts, and Piggy from Voivod. And this guy Remy, who ran the label PRC Records out of Canada, I guess somehow he found that, like also the keywords, right? He was looking up Steve Hurdle maybe, or Piggy, I don't know. But he found the Bandcamp page and reached out and was like, hey, like Steve Hurdle was like my brother, like my brother. And, like I love this music and I want to put you guys out. And I was like, oh, we actually just like signed to Self-Made God. But, like, thanks for reaching out and maybe we can work together in the future. So yeah, like Mike said, like we just like put Worthless Desires together. We just kind of like recorded it like real fast, just to kind of get it out there. You know, and it wasn't really meant to be like anything other than just like a, you know, just like a demo. But then I remembered like this dude Remy, and I was like, you know what, fuck it, like I'll just send it to him and see what he thinks. And he fucking loved it, and he's like, I want to put this out, like I want to, you know, do like 500 copies and blah 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 blah. And I was like, whoa, I was like, holy shit, like okay, so let's fucking do it. So yeah, so that's kind of like how it started. But it really, to answer your first question though, like yeah, like I think like we all decided, um I mean, I had decided personally, like when I was in dystrophy, that I was like, I'm not going to try to be a full-time musician, because even then I was like, it's like impossible, like to make a living being in a
It's hard.
band.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now it's like even more impossible, right? With like everything being streaming, right? And like, you know, artists getting paid like fractions of a cent. So, but even at the time I was like, I don't want to be in a band full time, but it's like if I can go on a few tours a year, like if I can use all my vacation to go on tour, you know, like I'm like totally down for that. And that's like pretty much been the MO like of all the bands. Like everyone's on the same page. It's not like I'm holding anyone back or anyone's holding me back. It's always like that's kind of like almost like a stipulation, or not a stipulation, but like it's like just to let you guys know, like this isn't going to be like a full-time band, right?
Yeah.
So that's always been something we've kind of like been on the same page about.
No, that's great. That's why I asked, because like it is very hard to tour nowadays. And you know, I think we're kind of getting back to like pre-pandemic, you know, like shows selling out and all that kind of stuff. But I mean, you know, with fucking venues taking insane merch cuts and gas prices and then merch price, you know, paying for the merch, all this upfront costs, it's just it's insane, you know, that bands can even break even anymore. And you know, at least there are people out there that have a passion to still like want to play music and make music without the aspect of touring all the time on it. And honestly, like, and you know, if you guys agree with me on this or not, that's I definitely want to know. But like, I guess a few years ago, like pre-pandemic, you know, you'd have a band tour the states like 3 times in a year, so they would hit up the same market over and over and over, and it got really saturated. And I feel like we're now back to like that's not happening, which is really great. You might see a band once a year, you might not, and I think that's way better, in my opinion. Um, Instead of them coming through the same area like 4 or 5 times or whatever, you know, crazy
Yeah,
stuff they had to do. But yeah, I don't know how you guys feel about that, but I would like to know.
I agree. Yeah. I mean, I'm of the mindset like keep them wanting more, you know? So it's
Sure.
like if you just give them a little bit, you know, like you go in there, you fucking play a banger set for 45 minutes or whatever, 30 minutes, and then, you know, like see you next year, you know, like don't miss out, you know, next time we're around, as opposed to like, hey, we're back. You know, it's like, ah, it's this fucking band. Here we go again. Like, I bet I know what they're gonna play this time, you know? So it's like, yeah, I agree, like 100%. Like I think like it makes it more like special, right? And it's just like, okay, like I gotta go. Otherwise, because otherwise you just take it for granted. And you're like, oh, whatever, I'll just fucking see him in 3 months. Or it's like, oh,
Right.
like the, you know, I saw this like a few months ago. Like, why did I just spend like $80 or whatever?
Yeah. It's you know, and not everybody has the money to like spend, you know, 40, 50 bucks on a ticket and um go to shows every other week.
Yeah,
That's the other thing, the tickets have gotten more expensive too. You know, I remember spending 10, 20 bucks on a show to see like, I don't know, like between the Buried Me and Darkest Hour play together, given that was like 15 years ago, but you know, now it's like 60, 70 bucks. Go see something like
yeah.
that. It's crazy.
Yeah, I saved like a lot of tickets from when I was a kid, you know, and it's just like, yeah, like $8, $10, $12, $15. And like even like bigger bands, you know,
Yeah.
like I think I paid like $15 to see like Megadeth at like Webster Hall, or you know, or somewhere like Webster Hall or something in New York City. And it was just like, yeah, $15, and it was $10 for a shirt. I was like, holy
Yeah.
shit, like, you know,
Yeah, merch prices has gotten even more out of control, man. I the most recent show I went to, I had to pay like almost 50 bucks for a shirt. And I was like,
50
oh my
bucks for a
God.
shirt.
Yeah, man. It's that bad now. It's crazy.
That's wild. I get we're fucking
Yeah.
up, man. We only sell our shirts for $15.
You gotta up
That's a
the
whole new
ante.
wardrobe. Yeah, it's I don't know, man. That's I guess it's just the nature of the beast and how things are changing. But you know,
Yeah,
it's
I mean that's really the only way bands make money is the
yep,
merch. So it's like they gotta sell $50 shirts. You know,
A
it's
lot of
like
those places are taking a cut anyway, too, right? They
right.
don't.
exactly, yeah.
That's why they got to price them so high.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think some venues are taking like 30-40%, which is insane.
That's fucking crazy.
Yeah, it's not their money. Like why should they take money from the bands?
Right.
Like
Are they gonna give the bands like 20% of the bar? I don't think so.
right. Yeah, yeah. The,
Yeah.
the dudes that I used to tour with, we used to always joke about that all the time. It's like, cool, just give us 10% of your bar and it's fine. We'll be even.
Right? Yeah. What the fuck? Ridiculous.
All right. So all right, let's shift gears to current times. You guys have a new album that's coming out soon. So how do you guys prepare writing a record? Like, are you guys just always constantly like writing stuff and saving it, or do you just wait until you're ready to start writing a record and go do it that way? Like, what's your preferred method here?
My preferred method is just to keep on writing, just
Mhm.
constant wheels in motion, and then we'll start taking the strongest songs and build something out of that. And then during when we kind of have a concept going, we like to sometimes throw in some ideas there, like just start like building a new idea from that batch and be like, hey, we need a song that kind of like feels like this. So it's just like start crafting it that way. Like, hey, we need a good opener. All right, sick. Then we'll pop in with an opener. Just try to like keep writing stuff and let the inspiration kind of flow from there.
So you okay? So you guys have pretty much just been working on this stuff since forever, basically. No, I mean like since the last album, you're just like kind of like always churning out stuff.
It's like a perpetual stew.
Hmm.
Like, keep throwing the ingredients in, take stuff out, keeps brewing like
Yeah.
that. Yeah.
Actual still. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, to Mike's point, yeah, it's like even like after Malignant Reality, we had like a few songs like, percolating, and then we started writing a few songs. We're like, maybe we should do an EP, and we're like, nah, fuck it, let's just go right to another LP. We wrote like a bunch of songs. Like we had like, I mean, maybe not like totally finished, but there was like maybe 16 songs,
Oh
including,
wow.
some of those original two, and then like maybe like 4 or 5 more, and then like the 9 songs that made it onto the album. Um, yeah, so we're just like, yeah, like to Mike's point, we're just like always writing, always coming up with ideas, sending them around to each other, and then just like kind of holding on to some for when they make sense later. And like, yeah, like thinking in like the context of a record, it's like, okay, like we need like a short banger, we need like a really fucking long, like kind of like, slow boy ending, or just kind of like figuring out like what would make the record flow well.
So it's a little bit kind of like an extended pre-production amount of time because you guys are always like throwing those ideas out there and stuff like that. Um, do you guys like write full songs kind of by yourself, or you still always like constantly being like, hey, like maybe you do this part or I do this part, or however it kind of works out?
Well, Mike's a machine, and he'll just have like this like surge of inspiration and like 3 in the morning, and all of a sudden like we'll wake up at like 7 a.m. and he'll be like, yo, I wrote the song last night, and I'll be like, what the fuck? And it's like super sick. And he's like, yeah, it's just like, yeah, like nothing needs to get changed, like this is fucking awesome. um
Damn.
Whereas me and Itai are a little more I don't know, we get a little more like self-critical, or it's just like we like overthink things too much. So it's like,
Mhm.
oh, I wrote all these riffs, but maybe they suck. Like, I don't know, like, what do you guys think? And I'll like kind of send them around, or Itai will, kind of like send like more like, I guess, fragments. Although I guess like the 2 songs he wrote on the album, he wrote pretty much by himself, but we'll definitely like send him around a little bit more. But yeah, it's definitely, Mike's definitely just like fucking the mad scientist though. He just fucking we'll have like this just like zen moment of just like, bam, here's the song, and it's like there.
Yeah, I think one thing that I appreciate personally is the way you guys do compose songs. There is a really good flow, and I think that's pretty rare to nail, in my opinion, at least when I'm listening to stuff. Because sometimes songs feel kind of all over the place or like a little too repetitive or what have you, and like there's a good pace to your guys' songs and how they're like put together and everything. And I think that's kind of what like attracted me to the band and like listening to you guys. Um, if I could wax your car for a minute here, you know what I mean?
Thanks. Yeah, appreciate it. Yeah. It's easy. I think it's easy in like the, especially with like the more like kind of, avant-garde, technical, whatever the fuck you want to
Yeah,
call, like progressive death metal, to like almost be like a riff salad, right? Where it's just like all
sure.
these ideas are like sick, but when you put them together into a song, it's like how does, it doesn't really make sense, right? In like the context of the song. Um, and that's like something like, yeah, like we try to put a lot of like thought into, right? Like, is this like a cohesive song? Like, does it make sense? Like, do these, even though some of these parts are very different from each other, right? Like, you'll have like this kind of, like groovier beatdown part, and then all of a sudden it'll get like kind of spacey and like atmospheric, right? But it's like, how does this work, together to make like a song that makes sense, right? That doesn't just seem like it's just like, oh, here's like like a Gorguts part and like a Deathspell Omega part and like a fucking ambient part, like all of these like individual parts that are just like, not related.
Yeah. So when did you guys start recording the album? Like, did you go into an actual studio or do you guys like kind of self-record everything? I know a lot of bands are really doing that these days to cut on cost. What was your guys' approach to that?
A little bit of both. We the first thing we did was obviously from the pre-pro, we sat and kind of like mapped out all the songs, and that was done around what was it? What year are we in now? We're 2024. Sorry, man.
No, hey,
Uh,
you're good. It's been a whirlwind.
yeah, we started like really pre-pro and like mapping it out on how it's gonna like the times and everything around like 2022, right, Pete? Like around like
Yeah.
spring. Around then we're like, these are the songs on the album. And then that's when we booked time to track the drums with AJ from Hath and Cognitive. He has a great little studio in was it in PA outside of Philly.
Mm-hmm.
And we went down there in damn, when was that? It was in July, right?
January. No,
Yeah.
it was January. Yeah.
Oh
I was gonna
wow.
say we started the pre-pro in the fall of 2022.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, like fall, winter, and then we recorded the drums in January of 2023.
It's like, yo, my timeline's all messed up.
Damn.
It's like
Yeah.
a lot of things happened. So
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, the drums we tracked them in January 2023, but we just blocked off like what was that like 3 or 4 days with AJ just to get those drums down. And then from there we kind of like took our time and he sent us the kind of like the mixed drums, a rough mix of the drums, and then we kind of just took our time from each of our respective homes and just started tracking our parts. Pete and Itai did a bulk of the guitars from their own homes, and Pete would come down from his home in New York down to Itai's in northern New Jersey, and they get together and do the space noises and track the all the guitars and get them all tight. And then I was the procrastinator, and I was the last one, so the bass came last, and got a little motivational pushes from Pete and Itai to get me to finish the bass tracks. And he'd be here with me in my home, and or I'd go to Itai's house and do that. And then another motivational push to get the vocals down,
Yeah.
because without these guys, it wouldn't be possible. So, and yeah, Pete helped me set everything up here, and just kind of just like, come on, Mike, just they'll hit record, and I'll just be there belting out some depravity, and they'd encourage me or say do it again or whatever. And so definitely, it's always like the hardest part is revving up and getting started.
Yeah. No,
That's
I
the
can
hardest
imagine
part.
it's a lot of work, man. I mean, even with how ubiquitous technology is and it makes it a little simpler, it's just like getting it done and making sure, you have like a listenable product at the end of the day. I mean, yeah, it's like having a whole nother 40-hour job.
Yeah, I mean, like I think like the revving up is the hardest part, but once you get a couple songs in, you're just like, oh, I want to keep going. You want to keep going. So it's like
Mhm.
because you're hearing the shape. You're starting to hear it back. You're like, oh, you feel more motivated that way. So it's definitely it's a journey. It's a process. I mean, a lot of ups and downs, a lot of self-doubt, but a lot of like also euphoric moments. So
Yeah.
it's
I mean, musicians are artists, and artists are always their own worst critic, man. So I totally understand that level of like that self doubt in there.
yeah, but
Yeah.
without I think a big part of it's like that um I'll say for me personally, it's like getting along and being best friends with your bandmates. And honestly, Pete and Etai are two of my best friends.
Yeah.
So they really like we know each other's musical journeys. We know well each other's tastes. So we kind of like I feel like we can like push each other and kind of like massage the atmosphere around us to make it work. So it's like it's really just lucky to have each other to do this.
So Mike, do you do all the lyrics and writing for that, or is it somebody else?
Oh, yeah, it's me. I
Okay.
do most of the writing. Etai did pen the lyrics for Reciprocal Abandonment on
Okay.
uh on the Infinite Mortality on the new album. Um, yeah, that's kind of like his big contribution to the album, to his debut album with us. So, but I
Yeah.
do most of the lyrics and most of the concepts, and yeah.
Yeah, I was gonna ask, I know some lyricists don't want to give away too much of the mystique of writing and everything like that, but like how do you get yourself in that headspace to kind of like write what you write about?
It's really a mixture of just a lot of influences within my life, within what I see, observational things, and also just philosophical things.
Yeah.
Just just what I'm feeling, like in a weird way. But it's just like a big kind of like melange of it. Like not really anything very coherent specifically, just a lot of it. It's like kind of like painting an abstract picture, but with
Yeah.
words.
Yeah.
Um, creating color and like image with layer. Not to sound pretentious, but that's
No,
kind of
no.
like now look at it. Just kind of like a collage of words, whether it's like prose or poetry or just like something like straight up like analytical, just like all together, just make something out of that and make it
Yeah.
ugly, just fucking evil, and also like just grotesque, you know?
Yeah, I mean it's gotta be it's death metal. You can't sing
Yeah,
without ponies and
yeah.
uh Barbie dolls.
As long as they're on fire or something or like melting and
Hmm.
being desecrated or something.
So besides like getting yourself motivated and everything like that, were there any other kind of challenges with getting this record, or was it all like pretty smooth and like hey, we did the thing, we're done, we're ready to get it going and out into the world?
Well, yeah, it was pretty smooth, and like the whole recording process was super smooth, and the
Cool.
mixing. AJ gave us mixes like he read our mind when he was mixing everything. He did so many little details in there that we're just like, whoa, he like knew what to bring out and what to, because I mean he's a musician himself, so he kind of like knows where we're coming from, and that whole aspect was good. And then with the label itself, everything was smooth. It's our second album with Transcending Obscurity, so
Yeah.
they know the deal, and they treated us really well on Malignant Reality, and it's like we have a good working relationship. So he was waiting for it to arrive, and he has the ball now, and he's dribbling it pretty well. So
Yeah, I was gonna say, I mean, like you said, it's been kind of a whirlwind couple of years, but I feel like I'm seeing a lot more internet presence for this release than I did the last album. Um, and I mean, who knows what the reasons why it's neither here nor there, but I think honestly the way I even found you guys is because it popped up in my Spotify algorithm, the new releases thing, and it's like shit, yeah, I'm gonna listen to whatever, Replicant,
nice.
sure. But now, it's like popping up on Reddit, YouTube, Instagram. Like it's out there when I'm seeing it. So that's something I've noticed personally, which is pretty cool. So whatever they're doing, it's working. You know, that's why I reached out to you guys. I was like, oh shit, they got a new record coming out. Like this is perfect.
Nice. Thanks for reaching out to us. I mean, like
Yeah.
that's also the other one of the silver linings of this internet age we're living in, where I think the internet kind of sucks now, but it's like
There's some
overall.
cesspool parts of it, that's for sure, man.
But it's really easy to find new music and like be aware of what's going on in a way. So
Yeah.
it's like you're always in the know. You're always connected, whether that's good or bad, but there's always everything is like out there, which is cool.
Yeah. I think, yeah, to your point, I think it's like our first, so like Malignant Reality was our second album,
Mhm.
and it was the first on Transcending Obscurity. And our first album, Negative Life, which was on PRC, which was the label that put out like the demo, the Worthless Desires demo. I think like between those two albums, like the band, like our sound got a lot more focused. Like we kind of like honed in a little bit more on like what we wanted to go for, and then we kind of like stepped. Like I personally recorded and mixed the first album, and then for the second album, for Malignant Reality, we're like, all right, let's take it to like a real studio, and like we'll like track it in a real studio, and like we'll have like our buddy Bobby, who's a super talented engineer, like do the mixing, and like Colin Marston from like Gorguts and a million bands like mastered it. So I think we just kind of like stepped up every facet of that album. So I think that's why like people were like, oh yeah, like that first album was cool, but like this album is like, all right, like this is like legit. So I think it got a little hype. So it built like a little fan base. So I think like when people, when we started kind of like promoting the new one, I think people were, like excited because of like where we came from the first two albums.
Yeah, I mean those singles that are out so far, man, are pretty crushing. So I think where you guys are taking everything is awesome, and I'm definitely looking forward to when that comes out. Um, I also wanted to know too, are you guys planning on doing like any more playthrough videos? Because I love that shit. And that one that you only have one video up, but I would love to see more of that kind of stuff. I don't know if you guys are planning on doing anything like that.
Yeah, so we have two.
Oh
So
hell
now
yeah.
you're in luck. We have two.
Yeah.
So me and Mike did one like 2 years ago for Ecto Skull, and then me and Itai did one a few months ago for Relinquish the Self. But yeah, Itai and I are actually planning on meeting up in like 2 weeks to do another one. So there
Fuck
will
yeah.
be another one. Yeah.
That's awesome. So then I guess post release, like what's the plan for the rest of the year for the band? I know it's always hard when you have an album that comes out early in the year, but tours, I know you said you guys don't really like to tour much, but anything, if you're not allowed to talk about
Well,
that stuff too.
yeah, well, on that note, we actually we are going on tour.
Okay.
Yeah, we're gonna go to Europe with Anachronism,
Oh,
who
dude,
are
that band rules.
super sick band from
Yeah.
Switzerland. They put out a killer record last year called Meanders, and yeah, we're gonna do a 2.5 week tour with them in April, late
Nice.
March into April.
Okay.
So in like not even 2 months.
Yeah,
Yeah, we're
Jesus.
doing
That's
all of
right.
like how many countries? Like 10, 11?
10. Yeah.
Switzerland, Italy, Austria, Germany, Poland, Slovenia, Denmark. So we'll be around there, and it's honestly a dream come true. Like this is like a little death metal vacation.
Yeah.
So
Are you guys doing any of the festivals? Because I know that's kind of around festival season over there.
we are doing one small festival, like a matinee festival with in northern Italy, uh,
Okay.
side of Milan. I think it's called Cioppino Death Fest, if I'm
Hmm.
not mistaken. Um, that one is going to be with Ad Nauseum as
Oh
well.
wow.
So going to be a sick little lineup there.
Damn. Yeah, I did one Europe tour, and man, let me tell you, after a certain time, everything's closed. So Eating food after a show was a pain in the fucking ass.
Oh.
Like, and everybody's so hungry because they just loaded all the gear out. They're like, we need food, we need food. Sorry, everything's closed.
Everything.
And maybe
Save
that
New York.
changed. That was like over 10 years ago. But man, it was brutal. It was like a lot of a lot of hungry nights. Just like, please, guys, I want some food.
We'll have to bring some Cliff Bars.
Have to pack some pockets.
Yeah. But yeah, we're gonna do we're gonna go to Europe for 2.5 weeks, like right around when the album comes out too, which is sick.
Cool.
So Kunal's gonna send us a bunch of merch and a bunch of album stuff, so we'll have it to go on tour with. And then I think we've been talking to our buddy Remy from PRC. He doesn't do the label anymore, but he still is pretty involved in like the Quebec metal scene. So we're hoping to do like maybe a Canadian run in the summer, just like maybe like Quebec, like a few shows in Quebec. And then some stuff, kind of local stuff in the tri-state area. But I think like the big one is going to be this Europe tour.
Ooh. Well, let's end it on this. What is the thing you're most proud of with this record? Whether it be some guitar riff you wrote, or just getting the record done, just something you guys are like really feel like you push yourselves on, or something like that.
Pete.
Let's see. I am really proud of the record as a whole, like we talked about before, in terms of the arrangements. I think this record is like more focused, and like Malignant Reality was like our first album in that vein, where we were like, okay, like we wanted to be a little more aggressive and in your face, right? We wanted to be a little groovier, but we still want to keep the kind of weird atmospheric parts from the first album. And I think like we were like really kind of finding like our style on that record, and it resonated with a lot of people, where they're like, oh, like this is like a really interesting kind of like merging of like this kind of like like kind of groovier, kind of like more like aggressive like sound, with like a little bit more of like the dissonant kind of atmospheric spacier stuff. And I think like on this album, like we really kind of like honed in on that, and I think we really like refined that approach, where like the songs are a lot more like cohesive, and I think like the album as a whole like really works like as one, like a piece of music, right? It's not like just a collection of tracks. It's like it's like a song, right? That's like split into like more like movements, right? Where it's like it all kind of works together on like a bigger piece. So yeah, I'm really proud of like the songwriting, the arrangement. And I think it all kind of like, I'm excited for people to like sit down and just like listen to the whole album, because like when the singles come out, it's exciting for people to hear like a song or two, right? But it's like it's almost like out of context, right? So it's like, oh, like the first single we released was like the sixth song on the album, so it's like, oh, I can't wait for someone to sit down and just like listen to the whole thing and be like, okay, like this is like how it's supposed to be consumed. So yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's how I still listen to records too, man. I cannot just listen to one song. I have to start from the beginning, go all the way through. It's the only way to do it.
Hell yeah. Every now and again, it's like, man, I really want to hear this one fucking song so bad, and I'll just like throw it on. But yeah, for the most part, it's just like, I want to sit down and listen to this thing start to finish.
So can you say when the record comes out? I know it hasn't really been posted release date yet, but I guess I'm gonna time this with like whatever works for you guys as far as like stuff like that. So if you can say when it comes out or anything like that, and where people can find it.
Sure. Mike, did you want to say anything about being proud
Mike,
of?
I'm so sorry, man.
Oh, no.
All good. I didn't want to just take over that.
No. I mean, like, no, you basically said it all, Pete. It's like I feel the same way about the whole pacing. I'm proud of it in that sense. And just like every album is just like a representation of where we are in our lives, and like how it's like kind of like a little time capsule. So it's like, I think it's just as important as Malignant Reality is to me, and Negative Life is to me. It's just like another chapter, its own distinct entity, and that's what I'm proud of. It's like it stands on its own within our like body of work. So I love the way it came out, and to me it's like some of the sickest shit we've done. So that's what I'm proud of.
Hell yeah.
But
I
yeah,
like it.
it's like going back to your last question, Infinite Mortality comes out April 12th by Transcending Obscurity Records. It's gonna be you could get it through a Transcending Obscurity. We have a Bandcamp with them. It's replicantband.bandcamp.com, and that's where you could pre-order it right now. And yeah, it's all the links are there, all the merch is there.
Yep. Yeah, I'll make sure everything's all linked in show notes and all that stuff for anybody that's listening or watching this. You're gonna click on it right now and then come back and finish. Well, cool
Yeah,
guys.
Kunal he's a master of the merchandise. So there's plenty of fun things to look at.
Oh yeah,
Yeah, I've been seeing those vinyls and like I got out of the vinyl game a couple years ago, but I was like, man, might have to get one of these just because that album art is so rad looking. I mean, why wouldn't I want to hang that on my wall? You know?
it's
Yeah, dude.
Ali Tuttle,
Okay.
great
Yeah,
painter.
she's
Um,
incredible. Yeah,
um,
she does such good work.
she also did the Malignant Reality painting as well. So
Wow. Damn, I'm gonna have to look her stuff up then because yeah, it's really sick. I like it.
Yeah, and yeah, Transcending Obscurity, they do really great job with like the splatter. He does some really sick variants, and
Yeah.
I think he totally knocked it out of the park with this one for the new album.
Right on, guys. Thank you for coming on the show. I definitely appreciate y'all taking the time and um, yeah, man, I'm definitely looking forward to this release. And if you guys ever tour this area, I will definitely be at that fucking show without a doubt.
sick. Thank you.
Oh yeah,
All right.
man. Yeah, thanks for having us.